Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is John Strand, and welcome to another edition of Antisyphon Address-Based Layout Randomization. As always, this particular live stream is brought to you by Black Hills Information Security. Once again, if you need to get hacked, you think you're hacked, or you want to prevent yourself from getting hacked, contact us. Just go to blackhillsinfosec.com for all your hacking needs. And it is also brought to you by Antisyphon Security Training, because we do stuff like this for affordable training for people. And wouldn't it be nice if we could just meet the amazing group of people that were behind No Bandwidth, the people that generate the music for our intros.
I was thinking
Those
the same
rock.
thing. I was
Those guys
wondering,
rock.
like, that sounded so familiar,
That sounds familiar. That sounds like something I've heard before. Well, today we're really lucky because we have Daft Hack in the house. We have Beau Bullock, who is also No Bandwidth. So if you like the music, you should definitely go buy it because it's absolutely fantastic. I either listen, Beau, to be honest.
It's free.
I either listen to No Bandwidth or I listen to Burt Baccarat whenever I'm hacking. It's those two that
I don't know how I feel about that.
Neither does he. But no, I want to say thank you so much. And today is another mini CTF day. We absolutely love the mini CTF stuff. I should go on the Twitters and do a retweeter on those things. But we had a mini CTF that was a cloud-based CTF. And I don't know who the winner is. I'm going to get that from Roman. But Beau is our breaching the cloud instructor at Antisyphon. And he literally got this like yesterday. And he's going to be doing a walkthrough because that's the way I do things. If people think there's a plan here, totally not. So I'm going to hand it over to Beau. And
I was going to say it's the same way I got hired here, basically. Like first week I got dropped into a physical. I'd never done a physical before. John's like, hey, you want to go break into a building?
Like,
I guess.
Yes.
So this way, hey, you want to like answer some questions about a CTF? Sure.
You were really excited, and you talked to other people in the company, and they're like, "So is he serious and just dropped me on a physical?" Like, dude, he had his mom break into a prison on her first day. Like, people like, I have no hope whatsoever. So, Beau, we're gonna get right to the tech as quickly as possible. So, sir, take it away.
All right. So, So John called me up. He's like, hey, there's a CTF thing. Can you walk through it, basically? And I had, first off, I had never seen any of these questions. So I had to spend some time yesterday kind of just going through and familiarizing myself with them myself, which is it's probably a good thing because, you get my perspective of how I would go about solving them as opposed to just, hey, here's like this, preferred way of solving things. So let's get started. So I am logged into the CTF platform here, brought to you by MetaCTF, by the way, which are awesome folks, and they always do a fantastic job with all these CTF challenges they do. So first off, first question here is breaching buckets. So the problem here says, take a look at where this image is hosted, and it's got a link. See if you can find the flag. Does anything stand out? So let's take a look. So it's a picture of a windmill. And right off the bat, you can kind of see in the URL up here that it's hosted at, looks like an S3 bucket. So we've got s3.us east1.amazonadbs.com. And then leading out in front of that is the subdomain, which would be the bucket name. Now, if you try to just kind of manually go and navigate this directory, it's not really going to work. You can kind of, try to, assume like, oh, hey, maybe like if I change the number here to a different day, oh, yes, that works. Okay. So, but a better way to go about it would be to actually just go and pull down all of the files using the AWS CLI. Now, this is one of the this is actually one of the first labs in my classes to go and kind of enumerate an open S3 bucket. So with AWS CLI, you do need a profile set up for it. So if you did want to follow along with this particular set of commands, you need to set an AWS profile for your AWS CLI. So with the AWS CLI, you can run commands like AWS S3 ls. And ls is basically the same thing you would do on a Linux system where you list files.
So a quick question, Beau. The AWS CLI, is that an easy package to install on like Linux or on Windows? Because I'm assuming it's not installed by default.
Yeah, it's a very easy install. Pretty sure it's just apt-get install AWS CLI. There are other instructions for installing too if you need that. So with the AWS CLI, it does have similar commands to your typical Linux command line functionality. So ls being list files, AWS, that's the name of the tool we're going to be using. S3 is the resource or the service that we want to interact with. So if you wanted to, let's say you want to interact with EC2 buckets, you would do AWS EC2 and run EC2 commands. So that's basically just specifying the service you're interacting with. But now we need to give it a target to go after. So S3:// and then we're going to point it at that bucket, which is the prod-cdn -user-images bucket. And if we just do an S3 ls on that, we see that there is that ksmith 3892 directory in there that is listable, which is also in that URL. So we could start digging deeper into that specific directory if we wanted, and see how deep that goes. So now we have some years, right? So we see 2018, 2019, 2020. We could dig into each one of these even further, and we have months now. So it gets pretty deep, right? So this could theoretically take a really long time to look at if you wanted to manually just kind of poke around.
This feels a lot like legacy directory indexing for web application assessments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it feels a lot like that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. That is a really good comparison for open S3 buckets. And, this is actually one of those things that, you still hear about happening pretty often is, an organization, has an open S3 bucket on the internet full of credit card numbers, and they just leave it out there exposed.
And what is the analogous thing to an S3 bucket in something like Azure?
So they're just called blobs or storage accounts in
Dear
Azure.
God, who came up with that name? That's horrible.
Yeah, so you have to have a storage account in order to generate a blob or a container within.
You know what? I have a feeling that there's somebody at Microsoft, the guy that came up with Microsoft Bob, and that was his claim to fame. And they're like, the guy that came up with Bob, let's get him to come up with a name for the thing that's going to be the S3 bucket for Azure. And he's like, blobs. And it's like the Bob guy struck again with blobs.
Yep.
So where can I find some of these open directories with credit cards and stuff? Just asking for a friend who's.
Oh my God!
So that takes doing your own research and running some of the tools that you might find in my class. And
you have to take his class.
All right, so
secret sauce.
All right, so to find a flag in a large amount of data. Serena and I were talking about this earlier, how there's probably a much more efficient manner of doing this. And, whenever I do CTFs, there's always that urge to I could spend, 10 minutes just, trying to write up the script or, spend 30 minutes just poking around and see if I find the flag. And sometimes it just takes that poking around and you just find it. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's one way to do it. So anyways, what I'm about to show you is a way to just go ahead and download all of the files from that S3 bucket. So if you run AWS S3 sync, if you run the sync command instead of ls, so we're going to run sync, and I'm going to give it a local directory. I'm just going to call it meta files. And that should go and download pretty much everything from that S3 bucket. So now we have a local folder here called meta files, and we can, let me see if I can zoom in on this.
No, I've got a question while you're zooming on that. Is this kind of similar? You were on an engagement recently. It was actually a crypto engagement, and they were using S3, but downloaded a whole bunch of files, including the developers were sharing some private things that shouldn't have been there. Was that technique that you did in that engagement similar to this one, where you're just pulling down everything, and you're like, oh my God, they're storing pictures from their vacation and pictures of their driver's license?
Yeah, there was a crypto exchange. It's supposed to be an anonymous exchange. Now, that's as much as I'll say. And the developers doxed themselves because they left files out in this open S3 bucket that were part of this exchange.
So this isn't just something that's happened a long time ago and it's been fixed. We're still seeing this crap today in our engagements, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, great.
What's
this was a month or two ago.
When I did this particular one, I didn't even use AWS CLI, so I wasn't signed in to any or authenticated into any AWS account, but I used S3 Scanner to download everything. So that was a different way that I did it, which didn't require authentication. But you did have to use a different tool. So
yeah. Yeah. And this is just built in, which is nice.
So as you can see, I'm just kind of like poking around these directories, and I'm just kind of like just getting an idea of what these pictures are, right? And you can
these
see
pictures
like
are all boring.
They're all boring
they're
until
all
you
really
get to
boring.
2019, 09, 05, and it's got the flag just in the picture. Now, all right, so that is, that's one way of going about this, right? Where, this is the manual poking around way. Now, another way you could have gone about this in a similar manner is just analyzing the file write times, or the last time these files were touched. Now, if we just do that ls command again on that same directory, 2019-09, we can see that the 05 JPEG file is actually modified 3 hours later than every single other file in the entire bucket. So that's just kind of an indicator that might throw you in the right direction there too.
Yeah. And this this gets into something we've talked about for years, right, Beau, where you get so caught up in I'm sure that people were trying to use grep and pulling down the files, grep flag and all these. Sometimes the best thing you can do is actually just look at the web pages, look at the content, look at the documents, look at the images to get a better understanding of what's there.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's I think there's probably a healthy balance between trying to get really technical when it comes to solving challenges and just plain poking around.
Yeah.
That's kind of how pen tests go too, right? All right. So problem number 2 we've got here is rogue hosts. While inventorying devices and servers on our network, our team stumbled upon a server at mystery.metaproblems.com, but we don't remember what it does and we can't connect to it. Can you help us figure it out?
Never happens.
What's
never
going on?
Happens.
So it sounds like we've got a case of like a legacy system here, something that wasn't in your asset inventory, got forgotten about and left out on the internet, publicly exposed, and now they just want to know what it is. All right, so in this case, we could just start trying to browse to it, see if maybe it's got a web server. That doesn't seem to be going anywhere. How about we just nmap this thing, right? So if we just run nmap I usually just go straight for -A, which is like the anything scan, which kind of runs a service scan. It does a little bit of the NSC stuff too, to get a general idea of what's going on the server. Now, what we should see immediately is it says, hey, host seems down. If it's really up but blocking our ping probes, try -P in. Now, I really like that they added this into this part of this challenge, because this is something that we do see as well, where there's often times where organizations will host servers that are exposed, but they don't enable ICMP or they don't have web servers. So, a lot of scanning tools will make it look like they're down. But if you just run nmap without the ping, we can now see that it is finding services. In fact, it found 3389, which is your standard RDP port. So, while this runs, we could go ahead and open up another window here and try to our desktop to it. So mystery.metaproblems.com. Doesn't seem like it's going anywhere.
Wait for it.
Right? All right, so RDP's not working. All right, let's let the nmap scan finish up, and let's see what nmap says about it. So we got the NSE scripts running now. It thinks that RDP's there, so it's probably gonna nmap's probably gonna go for whatever RDP scripts it has.
And that can take a while, right? Like those NSE scripts, they
can.
Yeah, they just don't.
And whenever this completes, the key thing that we're going to look for here is the service scan portion of this, right? Like, what did it actually find running from a Banter perspective on the ports? Because it is not, in fact, RDP. It's actually something different. And we're about to find out whenever it finishes running.
Do you need me to dance while you?
Yeah, please.
If you hit spacebar, if you hit spacebar. If you hit spacebar, it goes faster. Remember,
yeah, no, that's
keep
V.
hitting that.
V makes it more verbose.
We can hang out with Hazel until.
I guess we could sing Happy Birthday to Serena while we wait.
Oh my God,
She's your pen testing emotional support dog.
Birthday. Happy birthday.
Oh gosh.
Did it finish?
Happy birthday.
Day, dear.
It's really hard.
All right.
Oh, well,
All
never
right,
mind. We're
so-
done. Shh.
So it actually didn't give me the answer that I was hoping it was going to give me here.
Oh.
So just TCP wrapped, and it's like, okay, well, that's not very helpful. All right, so TCP wrapped. All right, let's just netcat to it, right? Let's just let's netcat to that port, right? Mystery dot meta problems.
This is part where Beau's like, I hope the server didn't go down, and he's just like winging it right now.
All right, so connects. What if we just write hello? Oh, okay, we got something, right? What is this? What is this? Redis version 6.2.6.
What?
All right, so
now, okay, so now this is weird. This is weird. Why did it come back and say TCP wrapped? It should have given you the output and said, sorry, I didn't know what the hell it was.
Exactly.
It should have,
Yeah,
which
it
makes
really-
me wonder
really
if we
should
have so many
so-
people hitting it. Yeah.
We
And
just
that
run
goes
a
back to
net
just don't
CCN
always
against
trust your
it.
tool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that gets into, you just shouldn't trust what your tool says. Sometimes you got to go back and validate it. Because we have testers all the time that have an engagement where they run like a scanner and something doesn't come back right. And the customer's like, whoa, how come it was wrong? What did you, it's just, bits are weird on the internet. But no, when you connected to it with Netcat, by the way, my heart swells. So thank you for using Netcat.
Hey, there we go.
You got the
It
Redis
says
version
now.
right there. There we go. You just had to back up and run it over again. That's good.
Exactly. All right, so I'll admit I have not pen tested Redis servers ever. So I had to. This is like one of those things you find on CTFs, and it's like, okay, well, what do? All right, so I found this little tutorial here, which I'll throw it in chat too. Here, maybe Ryan can reshare this for me.
Yeah, we got you.
I found a quick post here on just like some general basic Redis pen testing stuff, right? So Redis, it's basically like an in-memory data structure store, similar as a database, right? So it has messages, they can be cached. So reading through this, it appears that Redis CLI is a thing to use for connecting to this particular service. So let's try that out. Redis CLI-H, give it mystery.metaproblems.com-p. We got to give it the port. Remember, it's Redis running on 3389. We get dropped into a Redis shell. Okay. So now,
yay!
Now, one of the first things here is they say, okay, well, how about info, right? Like, what does info give us? Anything interesting? So info gives us a lot of information about the Redis server, including the version, memory that's being used, all kinds of stuff. But down here at the bottom, we have DB0, and we see keys equals 1. So it does have a database at least running that has keys. And if you read through the dumping database section here, you'll find that there is a way to dump the database, essentially. So if we run keys star, we see that there's a key of flag. And then it's just as simple as get flag. And that's it.
Great. That's almost too easy. That's gonna spoil people on pen testing. They're like, literally, it's just as simple as just typing out get something. Okay, so not all the time.
Yep. So that's it. And like I said, like this is one of those things. Like this is why I love CTFs, because there's always something I run into where it's like I haven't seen that before, and it's always such a great opportunity for learning something new. And this is one of those cases for me. So really cool.
Yep. And generally don't want your Redis ports exposed to the open internet to anybody.
Right.
That's generally a bad thing.
I think that's a new T-shirt idea. Don't let your Redis ports be exposed to the internet.
There you go.
Or just in general, don't expose
And then we have
your ports. I don't know.
Yeah, don't expose ports that are unnecessary.
Unnecessary.
I'm sure there's a really inappropriate shirt that we'd hear. I don't know how, but we'll figure it out.
I can't see it.
Nope, just not from here.
All right.
Nope.
So this third one, I will say that this was definitely the most difficult of all three of the challenges, and this one made me so happy because
hold on. Just for the record, I think we only got one person that got this one. I think Damon was the only one that got this from Trash Possum.
There's only one person that got it. That is awesome.
Well, it says solved by 2 teams, and I was wondering if you were one of the teams that solved
No, it wasn't me. I didn't solve any of it. No, No, I didn't.
No, he didn't solve any of it.
I didn't submit any answers. That's what I mean.
Okay. It's like, are you about to solve this live? This might take a while.
Oh, no.
No, it wasn't me. John, I'm out. So Serena's taking over from here, and she's going to walk through it on the file. All right.
All right.
So yeah, we want to reach out to. All right. So go for it. Let's go.
All right, so It says, more than meets the eye. Your friend just made this new app hosted on AWS that allows you to extract EXIF data from images, and he's very pleased with the result. Can you get something more out of it than just image metadata? Now, there's a couple really key things in the phrase here that are very important. First off is this hosted on AWS, right? Like the fact that this system that we're about to look at is hosted on AWS is a very, very important thing. Because the vulnerability that we're going to be looking at is very much a cloud-specific thing, and it's not something you would typically find on just like an internal system. The other thing is, it asks you the question: can you get something more out of it than just image metadata? So let's go take a look at the app, right? So we've got i.metaproblems.com, free image, EXIF viewer. Enter the URL of a JPEG image below to view its EXIF data. Now, EXIF data, it's basically the metadata attached to a file, right? So this is something that if you've ever done any sort of challenges or puzzle solving, CTFs, that kind of stuff, there's a lot of times where you want to look at the metadata associated with a file. Even on our own red teams, we look at metadata associated with files to try to find things like usernames that are tied to like Word documents or Excel documents, that kind of thing. So I'm going to paste in this picture of Cookie Monster here, and we're going to load the EXIF data for him. All right, so it goes and pulls down the file, and we see that it does pull out the metadata associated with this file, like it says it's supposed to. So okay, so what is going on here? What can we try to glean by this particular thing? So if we look at the source of this page, we can. Well, actually, that's really small, so I know that's. Let's see if I can make this bigger. All right.
Enhance.
Yeah, right. Enhance. So if we look at the source, we can see that it has this portion of code right here where it's basically taking the source of the HTML request you're trying to send and base64 encoding it. So this is basically the source of that page, which in this case is just an image file. So that becomes important. So what's something else we could try here? Now, like I mentioned, when it comes to AWS systems, when it comes to anything cloud hosted, like a virtual machine that's cloud hosted, there's this thing called the instance metadata service that is running on virtual machines. Now, the instance metadata service is something that it has become a very much at the forefront of a lot of cloud-based vulnerabilities because of the fact that if you can communicate with the instance metadata service, a lot of times you can get sensitive information from it. So what the instance metadata service is it's actually this web server that listens on the non-routable 169.254.169.254 IP address on every VM, EC2 instances, Azure VMs, Google Cloud instances. And it's a way for virtual machines to orientate themselves within the cloud. So it gives them the metadata they need to know things like what subscription you're in, what network settings you have, what configurations, things like that. And another thing that is commonly applied via the metadata service are IAM roles. So let's say that you had an EC2 instance that you wanted to do something in AWS, like you wanted it to go and connect to an S3 bucket and pull data from that S3 bucket. Instead of hard coding credentials like on the disk and saying, hey, use this script to go pull those files from that S3 bucket, you can actually apply a role policy within AWS to give it permissions to request what are known as temporary security credentials. And those temporary security credentials can be pulled directly from the EC2 instance themselves and then used to authenticate to other services. Now, the way it gets those credentials is through this instance metadata service, which is running on local host. So, well, not exactly local host. It's the non-routable 169.254 address. So, okay, so long explanation. Can we hit the metadata service? So, HTTP ://169.254.169.254. All right, let's try to load EXIF. We get an error and it says an IP address was found in the provided URL. IP addresses are forbidden for security reasons. Okay, so what's the next option? Well, there's a really interesting trick where you can actually resolve an IP address in decimal format. So if you go convert that 169.254.169.254, right, to decimal format, you get this number 285.203.9166. All right, so let's go take that and try to see if we can bypass that. What's effectively like a WAF rule, right? Like this is kind of like a way to kind of get around WAF by using something that's not an IP address, but it is something that resolves ultimately to an IP address. So let's try loading EXIF again. Now we get a different error. It says error, no EXIF data was found. Okay. So again, let's go back and look at the source of this, right? So what is it? We can see that there's like a broken image there, right? So let's view source. Where's it at? Not view selection source. I want the full source. Oh, it's because I had it highlighted. There we go. View page source. There it is. All right. So same thing. Let me zoom in again. So we're viewing page source now. Let's see what is being called there. So we've got more base 64 right here, right? Now there's no image, right? So what could that be? What did it actually pull there? Now trying to do this through the browser is not an easy task. So what I would recommend doing here is just setting up an intercepting proxy like burp, right? So with burp, we can go and do the same thing, right? So we've got.
I was just gonna say that, like, you're tracking exactly where I was going. That's awesome, Beau. That's awesome.
It's quite obvious.
No, it's awesome.
It's quite obvious,
that,
really,
right?
if you think about it.
All right, so I've got burp. I've captured that request, right? So let's go here and we just highlight that base 64 section. We should see it actually decode over here in real time on the right, and we see, oh hey, it's a directory. It's directory structures with dates. This is the metadata service, the instance metadata service on an EC2 instance. Now it keeps a record of previous versions, and the latest version is the one we typically want to go with. So now it becomes a matter of, okay, well, we hit the metadata service. Now let's start digging into it and seeing what else we can find on the metadata service. So again, going to capture the request. We're going to just the latest directory now, and then let's go and find the base 64 again. Where's it at? Oh, you know what? I need a slash on the end of it, I think.
Okay. Because yeah, there's some stuff that looks weird, but it looks like file integrity SHA hashes with what you were getting. Yeah, there's a SHA 384. That's not base 64. Oh.
Yeah, did I miss it?
You need the decimal IP.
Oh, did I grab the wrong IP? Oh, you're right, I did. Oh, yeah, there we go. That was the problem. All right, and we don't need a slash, I don't believe. There it is. All right.
There it is.
Yep. All right. So within the latest directory, there's a few standard directories out there. So we've got metadata and user data and dynamic. Now, user data.
Just for the record, I just want to say, like, I remember whenever the highlight base 64 and burp just brought it to you, like it was like a revelation. That is one of the most awesome features in burp.
Yeah. It is awesome. Yeah. So this is just like what you mentioned earlier with directory indexing or directory listing. It's really just the same thing. We just kind of dive in and see what we find within each directory. There are some very specific things that we can look at. This one being the user data portion. And let's see what the user data says. Okay, so user data says to do automatically load code from the S3 meta-problems. Meta-problem more than meets the I bucket. Okay. And then it says the IAM role should already be in place. So let's copy that because we might need that later. Find a document here. I'll just paste it down here. All right, so the user data tells us that there's something interesting in an S3 bucket, basically. Now let's go back again, and this time instead of going to user data, let's go to metadata. So in the metadata directory, I just want to show you guys this real quick because I think this is kind of fascinating. If you look at the metadata directory itself, you get an idea of how much information you can actually pull from metadata service. All right, so on the right here, we have AMI ID, we've got events, we've got the host name of the system, we've got an IAM directory, which is what we're going to go look at in a second. We've got local IPv4, network information. All this stuff is basically the metadata for that virtual machine to get an idea of where it's at in perspective of that cloud system. So what is probably the most interesting thing here is the IAM directory, because this is what I was talking about earlier, where we're looking at trying to identify if a role policy has been applied to it. So if we just go to IAM / security - credentials. So this is another location that if you navigate here and you don't see anything, then that means that there's no role policy applied to it at all. Which is that happens. But in this case, we get a response back, and we do see that there is a role policy here, and it says meta problems more than meets CI with underscores. Now this is where like what I think is like probably one of the coolest attack paths kind of comes to play. All right, so we've got a security credentials URL. Now if we just tack on that role, so this is the name of the role that's applied to this EC2 instance, right? So if we just load the EXIF data from that particular role, or load the metadata from it, we see that we now have a very large base64 section here, right? And it's not automatically decoding this for me, but let's go ahead and send it to decoder and see if that works. So decode as base64, and there we go. All right, so here, what we have are what are known as temporary security credentials. Now, these are credentials that, as the name would suggest, they are short-term security credentials that are applied to the EC2 instance that can only be used for a limited amount of time. So how do you use these? So the next thing would be, okay, well, let's set it up with a profile.
Okay.
Now, there's a few things you need for a profile, for an AWS profile. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Zoom. View. Is there a way to zoom it here on in this notepad? I don't even see a zoom option. Great.
It's actually okay. Whenever we go full screen, so you go full screen, you can actually see it. Yeah, okay, if it's full screen, it's fine.
All right, cool. All right, so for an AWS profile, there's a few things we need. If you have just standard programmatic access keys, where you set up an IAM user and you're using that user to authenticate to whatever services. Typically, you only have two things. You have an AWS access key, and then the AWS secret, right? It's a secret access key. Those are basically like the user and password for a long-term IAM account. When it comes to temporary security credentials, you actually have three things. So you have the access key, the secret key, and then you also have a session token that we have to add. So in the file here, I'm going to go ahead and start pasting in those keys. So we've got the access key first up top. We've got the secret access key here. Then we have the session token, which is this long value in the token field. Oh. I hate it when that happens. Like you go to copy like this long thing and then accidentally go down a line. Oops. All right, come on, let's copy it this time. All right, there we go. All right, so we got the token. Gonna paste that in here. All right, so I'm gonna save this. I just have it in a temporary text file for now, and I named this profile temp-keys. So I need to add that to my AWS credentials file. So to do that, I'm going to just cat temp-keys, and I'm going to tack it on to the end of the AWS credentials file, which is in .aws credentials here. And so now I should be able to use the AWS CLI along with those credentials. So, and to do that, you have to specify the profile. So one way you can kind of check to see if those credentials are even valid or not is just run AWS STS for the security token service, which is it's a service that allows you to get an idea of who you are operating under. So it's kind of like the who am I of AWS. So we got AWS STS get -color -identity, and then we're going to specify profile, and we're going to give it the temp-keys profile, and we get a result back here that gives us the ARN, which is the Amazon resource number. So this gives us basically the username for that particular role policy user. Now, like I said, like this is like very, very much equivalent to the who am I of traditional like internal pen testing kind of world. All right, so we do have a set of credentials now. We are authenticated within the AWS account associated with that EC2 instance, right? So we are literally logged in. Now, there's a couple things you could do here. So you could just start poking around manually. You could start, poking around and trying, things like AWS EC2 describe instances. Try to get like the EC2 instances. Try to list those out. You could, try to list out Lambda functions. There's a lot of things you could try to do. Now, depending on if you're on an engagement, like if you're actually actively pen testing and trying to be quiet, you might want to try to not make so much noise. So you could try just one thing at a time. Alternatively, if you don't care about making noise, if you want to be noisy and just find all the access you have, there's a tool called Weird AAL by Chris Gates that is really, really nice for kind of enumerating all that information. Yep. Also, I saw somebody throwing Paku in the chat. Yeah. So Paku is another really good AWS pen testing tool. But we were given a hint earlier on the user data metadata page that said that there's an S3 bucket called meta-problem-more than meets the eye, right? So we could take that hint and just go see what's in that S3 bucket. So again, like I did earlier, AWS S3 ls. We're gonna give it the S3 : //. We'll give it the name of that bucket. We'll give it the profile of the temporary security keys that we have. Hit enter, and we see that there is a flag.txt sitting out there in that bucket. Now again, we could do very similar to what we did earlier and do AWS S3 sync to download that file, to sync it to our local system. I'm just going to add a dot on the end so that I can sync it to the current directory I'm in. And it should download to flag.txt, which it did. So now all it takes is cat flag.txt. The flag is with great IAM roles comes great responsibility. And that is it.
Yeah, so I don't think I was gonna get that one. Great demo.
Cool. Yeah, that was a tough one. That one was definitely tough. I think probably getting past the WAF section and doing like the IP address to decimal location or to decimal notation was probably one of the harder aspects of that one. But then again, like if you didn't know anything about the metadata service, if you have never seen that before, that's one of those things that it can be something to be a little bit. It can be difficult, right? If you've never seen it before.
So a couple things. One, that is a lot to cover, and you did a great job. I was a little off. I hadn't started yet, so that's why I hadn't quite come to that conclusion that you had. Also, John's internet died in Costa Rica, so
it's all good. He probably just got bored and had to leave.
So, Serena, what's the takeaway of yours?
Let's see here. Well, the first one, I did, and it wasn't until you had been like, oh yeah, you pretty much just can go through the pictures and find the flag. And I had like given up right before that because I was like, this doesn't make sense. And so I think and that's happened to me like a couple times doing CTFs where I'm like literally just this close. And I was like, I don't know, this isn't working. So I guess takeaway from that is to just keep like going. And even if it seems like maybe you're not on the right path, just like explore that fully before completely giving up on that. And then my other takeaway is that I should probably take your cloud hacking class because this is all very new to me. So, but it's super interesting for sure.
Cool.
Yeah,
I'm glad you liked it.
Two things I remember is the first time we gave away like the first 4 hours of Beau's class, and just how many people were like, "Oh my god!" There was like 1,600 students there all at the same time, and everyone was learning.
Yeah,
and
that
then
was
the
insane.
second one was when you did the blockchain webcast, and everyone's
Yeah.
like, "I've been doing security for like 10 years, and I have no idea what you just said." So, thank you for all the research and development that you do in order to teach the rest of us, because that's important. So,
Oh, absolutely. I love this stuff, so it's fun for me.
yeah. And Kitty came to say hi.
You can you can send CTFs my way anytime.
Yeah. So thank you, Beau. Yesterday we were like, "Hey, can you do a CTF and tell us all the solutions?" You're like, "What?"
Yep.
For everyone watching right now, thank you so much for checking out the write-ups and solutions to the CTF. We're going to keep doing this. We're just going to drop a CTF like out of the blue, and then you have 24 hours or so to do it, and then we'll give you the solution, because we've heard that how many CTFs have you done where you just hit a wall and then you're like, well, how do you do it? They just someone show me how. And so that's what we want to do. We want to be able to show you how it's done, because literally we are a training organization, and it would be terrible of us to go like
just it's on your own. You gotta figure it out.
Yeah. All right. Anything else before we wrap up for today?
Thanks MetaCTF for putting this on. They did a killer job, nailed it. I think those examples are perfect examples for like if you had to pick 3 things to like throw in a CTF for a cloud CTF, perfect examples.
Yeah, MetaCTF, they just created the CTF wars for the zine. So it's a very introductory CTF. All you got to do is you got to go through the zine, find some code, solve the codes using a Caesar cipher, and then that gets you the entry point into the CTF. And it's a very introductory CTF, and it's solely free, and it's available right now. And someone said, how did they get to your class? Like, how do you get to Sesame Street? But it's breaching, not preaching the cloud, breaching the cloud. So I'm going to drop this in, and then Ryan's going to go full screen with it. So
cool.
Serena, anything before we wrap?
Nope. Thanks.
Happy birthday, Serena.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to go.
All right, Beau. We'll make sure we get a description on this, so that way people are like, what was this? Because they all say the same thing, like anti-siphon address space layout randomization. And then we have to go in later and like, here's what it was, because it's always random. All right, we'll see you all next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And if you ever want to check out a webcast on Thursdays, we do those too. All right. Thanks, Beau. Thanks, Serena.